right. Again, for faculty members, I know that I primarily work with students, but please, if there's anything I can ever do to help you in your application, please let me know. I talk to Fulbright a lot, and so if you need me, I'm always around for you if you need something. Okay, with that, I'm going to talk about the student program now. And, whoa, excuse me for real, 1 second. I am going to share my screen, as you all do. And you should be able to see my screen now. All right, the Fulbright U.S. Student Program for 2022-2023. So as Dr. Boyer mentioned, the Fulbright program was created in 1946. It comes out of World War II. And it is this interesting program in which after World War II, they thought about how to create how do you create international peace after a world war? And the Fulbright program was kind of created out of this idea that if we took a representative group of Americans and put them all over the world, it would help to kind of make the world, to be honest, make the world a better place and to sow the seeds of international peace. So anybody that's ever on a Fulbright, you're actually doing a bit of foreign policy work. You're actually kind of making the world safer, and you're making international relations more stable just by being there. And so I always think before you get a grant to teach or to do research or to go to graduate school, just remember you're there on this kind of big mission to promote international harmony. It's funded by the U.S. State Department. The funding is kind of cut between U.S. State Department funds and the host country funds. There's about 2,200 awards a year. 2021, that's kind of a rough estimate. And what Fulbright is, just a bare bones for the students, what it is it's 1 year fully funded in a country of your choosing. You can choose to do three things on a Fulbright. You can pursue an English teaching assistantship, that is 20 to 30 hours a week in an English language classroom. That you can do a graduate degree, provided that the country offers it, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Or you could do a research project, provided that it needs to be done in the country to be successful. So those are roughly the three main areas and categories for a Fulbright award. However, with everything Fulbright, there's always more opportunities within it. So there is a National Geographic Documentarian Award that's funded partly by Fulbright and National Geographic. There is a Fulbright Hayes Award. There's a Clinton Global Initiative. And so there's a whole bunch of other type of awards within the Fulbright program too for U.S. students. Okay, eligibility. You have to be a U.S. citizen or national, and you have to hold a bachelor's degree before the start of the grant. So those that are on here now, if you're a senior going to graduate in May, you don't have anything to worry about. If you're a junior that's going to graduate in either December of 2021 or in May or summer of 2022, the first time you can apply is in October. So traditionally what we do is we begin work on your Fulbright application materials the summer going into your senior year. So always keep, if you're a sophomore or you're a freshman, just keep that in mind that you got some time, but when we get started is that summer going into your senior year. Language proficiency is a thing that's really interesting in the Fulbright program, partly because language proficiency varies by host country. Most programs within Fulbright for the students do not require a proficiency in the language. However, it's those countries that I tend to tell students that you're most likely to travel to, Italy, France, Spain, Germany, Mexico, most of Latin America. Those countries will require an intermediate to advanced proficiency in their host country language. The rest of the countries kind of do not. And so if you don't speak a particular host country language, that should not detract you from pursuing your project. However, if you want to go to Germany and you want to study, religious manuscripts in German, you better know the English, you better go know the German language if you're going to do that. So if your project hinges on you knowing the language, then you're going to have to know the language. However, it won't be required in some programs, and it won't be required in some projects either. Prior teaching experience, this is for the ETA program, that varies by country and award type. And I'll talk a little bit more about what prior teaching experience means to the Fulbright program. It typically doesn't mean what you think it does. The other thing, and I want to hit this on today, and I can't emphasize this enough, is there is no GPA threshold for the Fulbright program. Fulbright looks at exceptional students in an array of different categories, not just your GPA. And quite frankly, sometimes the GPA doesn't tell you really all that much about a student. So they're looking for a diverse student group to go on their Fulbright. They're looking for people who come from interesting places. They're looking for people that come from big institutions and small. They're trying to find that one person that sort of represents the Fulbright mission. And you can't do that through a GPA. Now, having said that, if you're going to do an engineering program at the University of Kent in the United Kingdom, your GPA needs to be very strong in math and science, right? However, there's not a threshold for what that means. So do not think that a GPA is the sole determination for a Fulbright award. It is not. It is probably, for most reviewers who review Fulbright applications, they would probably say that they hardly look at it at all. Okay, a breakdown in the study and research awards. Keep in mind this is 1 year fully funded, and that what I can say is that it works on the academic calendar. So it might not be 12 months, it might be 9 months, 10 months, or 11 months. It really depends on the country you're going to. But you should plan on at least 9 months being gone. The study research awards are available in 140 countries, and there's about 950 of them. And you could use them to design a research project. You can use those to design a graduate program at the host country's, one of the host country's institutions. And what Fulbright will do is give you the money to do that. So if you're a researcher and you're looking at pay for performance in Singapore's high schools, you will get funding that year to pursue that research. So you'll get access to some kind of research money. You'll get access to a stipend, a living stipend, and you will get the funds you need to carry out that project in Singapore. At the same time, let's say you want to study classical harp in France. Fulbright gives you a stipend. It provides you your tuition for you to be able to do that graduate program in France. And then there is, on top of that, a whole bunch of very specific graduate degrees that you can go after. And again, that really varies by country. So before I go any further, I want to be clear that this is going to be a broad presentation, that really the good Fulbright advising comes into when me and you sit down face to face or Zoom to Zoom and talk about what you're interested in and what you want to do, and then we start finding the match with the country that matches that. So keep in mind that you might have a million questions, but really what you're telling me is we need to have that next meeting. So I'll try to answer questions as best I can throughout the time, but remember, the best follow-up is to make a meeting with me so we can talk about the program and talk about who you are and what you want to do. Again, the program requirements are going to vary. If you're doing a master's degree, it doesn't I mean, it's going to be what the master's degree requires, right? Just like any graduate program in the United States, you have to meet the admissions requirements, right? Again, the language depends on you. A lot of programs, especially in East Asia, are English language programs, and so you don't have to know Mandarin or Japanese or Korean. But in some programs and some universities, you do, because they're not taught in English. Program requirements, the number of awards offers can be varied. So you'll see in the UK that they have one award at every UK master's, every UK institution, almost everyone, they'll have one award. But some years extra funding comes in place and they can offer two. You really won't know that. But when you look at the website, you'll see one, and that just tells you you can count on at least one person being funded. At the same token, you can see 150 ETAs in Malaysia can be funded in 1 year, or I'm sorry, not 150, it's 100. That number really doesn't change. So it's usually the awards that have like one or two. That's when you can find there is some slack in the number of awards. Big programs like the Germany ETA, like the Taiwan ETA, those that have 140, 150 plus recipients, those numbers are pretty stable year to year. But so that's all to say that the steady research awards, there's a little flex, not that much, but you won't know that until they actually give out grants and give out awards. All right. The English Teaching Assistant Program is, again, a one-year program. It's available in 75 countries, 1,300 awards. I mean, this is the boilerplate stuff. But it involves assisting in English language classrooms. So you're not teaching necessarily, you're assisting. Now, if you go into your Fulbright and you have a tremendous amount of teaching experience, let's say you're in elementary education here, and well, all elementary education students have to have a lot of teaching experience because you go into classrooms and you might volunteer, and that's one reason that you're interested in teaching. Those students who come with a big background of teaching experience, they sometimes can teach by themselves. Most don't. Most assist. And what that means is being a conversation partner, doing programs with the people in your class, presenting on American culture in English, working through lessons, and things like that. The program requirements are going to vary by country, so that usually means who you're going to teach. Some countries are going to be very specific. They'll tell you, it's like in Brazil, that is a placement at a university. In Taiwan, you could work, I think Jimmy will talk about her experience, but they worked with very young kids. So it really varies about the country to country, but in the award description, you will see a listing. It'll tell you who you can expect to teach on your ETA. Most ETA assignments do not require the proficiency in the host country language, except those that I mentioned before: Germany, France, Italy, Spain, Mexico. Most of Latin America does, or I think all of Latin America does. Your responsibilities are as a co-teacher. You're not the teacher of record or anything like that. You are required to create after-school programs or programming. It's called host country engagement. So they're looking for applicants that create interesting little programs that they can do. Jimmy can talk about the ones that she proposed. This can be something like American Music Night, where you listen to American music and kind of talk about it. This can be like a small STEM camp where you work with students that are interested in science, technology, engineering, or math. It can be movie night. It really depends. But they want to see some kind of additional work in the community, in the school system, besides just assisting. And that's part of your application materials. The number of awards offered, the ETA program tends to be big. It tends to offer the most awards. It is the most popular program in the U.S. student Fulbright program. So this can vary. You can have 100 ETAs in Malaysia, and there are no ETAs in Japan, which seems weird to everybody because Japan is this big country. But that's just the way it works. Mexico will have 54 English teaching assistantships, and Colombia will have 80, right? So the number of awards can vary, but the bigger programs are in the ETA program. What I mean by that, the larger number of available awards is usually found in the ETA program. Country selection. And again, this is just to use as an example. This is Taiwan's offerings. And so this is what they're going to offer in 1 year. If you can see, they're going to offer 8 of those research awards. Those are research projects or an open graduate degree, where you can make a proposal to get any degree at any Taiwan institution, right? So they're going to hand out 8 of those next year. Then you see 145 English teaching assistants. And they're going to hand out 145. The chances of success in a program that big is about 40%. So it's pretty good odds that if you meet what they want, you tend to do well. Then you're going to see, and this is just kind of an example of how varied Fulbright offerings can be. You can see very, very specific awards. This MBA in Taiwan, the Debate Coach Trainer Award, which is exactly what it says. You are the debate coach at a Taiwanese high school for a year, helping them. And I think you do a little English language assistant too, but your main goal is to be the debate coach, which I think is pretty cool. You can see this new award here in Mind, Brain, and Consciousness. If you're a psychology major, you might want to check that out. Most of these degrees are going to be in English too, right? If you're in SOTA, if you're in fashion and brand management, they actually have a master's degree in Taiwan for that. They have very specific master's degree across all the countries that get very interesting and very cool, right? There is a university in the United Kingdom that offers an Aston Martin Award, which is the car of James Bond. So it makes it sound like, I don't know, you work on James Bond's car for a year. Maybe you're the person that puts the rocket or the laser in the car. I don't know. But that's very, very specific. It's an automotive award for people that want to work in automotive design or industry design or anything like that. And you get to work with Aston Martin for the year. In Italy, there is a deafness studies award where if you're thinking about working in disability, working with people with hearing loss, there's a specific program in Italy, and it's in English too. This one has international communication, industry design, engineering, economics, global health. I mean, it really depends on what you want to do. Is based on how we move forward in choosing your country. But this is to let you see how varied and how cool it can be. And there's real specific awards, and then there's just awards where they're like, present us something and we'll see if we want to fund it. So you can create your own kind of a graduate degree. You can certainly create your own research project out of that, right? But that's just one country out of 150, and that's how many opportunities are there for next year. Candidate profiles, how do I fit within a particular country? Well, they tend to tell you. And it's our job together to make sure that the country you choose, that in your application materials, you're a fit for the program. So you can see there's 2 separate candidate profiles. One doesn't tell you very much. One is very, very specific, right? And that's telling us something. That's telling us who they're looking for. So this one is the Czech Republic ETA. And so this one right here, this first one on the left-hand side. And the Czech Republic is looking for anybody. It wants art students, it wants music students, it wants business students, it wants anybody, right? As long as you have some type of tutoring, teaching, helping student experience, the Czech Republic is looking for just about anybody. You'll see that supplemental project, they recommend it. That's that after-school community-based project. They want to see you make it. They want to see you do it. Over here, you'll see Greece. Greece's ETA is far more rigorous. It's about a 50-week assignment, and you are thought of to work in Athens College the majority of your time. I mean, that is a much more intense ETA position than most. But you can see that knowing that, they're talking about wanting English literature, education, TESOL, TEFL, this is teaching English as a second language. They prefer it, but not requiring it. Of course, open-minded, adaptable, flexible. This tells me they're really looking for someone with teaching experience, a little bit more so than tutoring, right? And they tend to choose people that work in writing centers or taught composition as a graduate student. In fact, ours that went to Greece, or is going to Greece in August, she was a master's student in the English department and she won. The other reason she won too is that this Athens College is a really cool college, but it's a very liberal arts college. So it's very invested in theater. And our winner, Candace Fawcett, had a community background in theater, and she talked about it in her application. And so Greece's ETA just kind of wanted her desperately, right? And she is one of 13 that were chosen that year. It's a very tough assignment, but she gets to live in Greece. She gets to live in Athens for the year, which is a really great assignment. As you can see, supplemental projects, they even say not permitted. That's because they want you in the school, working with the teachers, working with the faculty. So they don't even expect you to talk about anything that you want to really do outside the school. And then you'll see in both of these, the foreign language proficiencies are not required. You don't need to know Czech, and you don't need to know Greek to go into either one of these programs. I've had 2 students accepted to the Czech Republic program. Neither one of them had prior experience with the Czech Republic. I've had 1 student accepted to the Greece program, and her experience with Greece was basically she had studied plays and theater. So you don't have to have this long, you don't have to have dreamt since you were 5 years old that you wanted to live in Malta. You just have to demonstrate that you're interested in Malta, that you're interested in Ukraine, or you're interested in the Slovak Republic. That's what needs to come across in your materials, not that you've dreamt of doing it ever since you were a small person. You might have, but that's not required really. So they're looking for that enthusiastic applicant that gets really who they are and what they care about. And that's our job together, is to work on your application materials that communicate that you're the fit for their program. All right, application materials. 1-page, single-space personal statement. And this is the roughest, this is the worst statement. I'm going to go ahead and say it out loud. It is the worst statement in your application. It is the hardest to write. But this is essentially, who are you and how do you fit within the Fulbright program? So you tell them a little bit you tell them about yourself. Jimmy can explain what hers was like. I won't steal her thunder, right? But she can also talk about how it's difficult to sit down and write that statement at first. But you get 1-page, single space to tell them how awesome you are. And my job is to help you tell how awesome you are in 1-page, single space. Can be done, right? For the next statement is the statement of grant proposal. And the length of this is going to vary between assignments. If you're going for the ETA, it's only 1-page, single space. But this is, why do you want to teach English? How are you prepared to do so? What cool things do you want to do in the classroom? The study research ones, which is either the graduate degrees or the research awards, you get 2 pages, single space, and we have to fill all of it, right? But this is your project, its significance to the Fulbright's mission, the timeline of how you're going to get your research project done in the months you have available. Also, in the graduate degree applications, it should be project focused too. So not only are you applying to get a degree, but you're trying to get the degree to further a project that you're interested in. So each one of those statements, whether the graduate degree or the research project, is going to talk about a research project at some length, right? And you get 2 pages, you get an additional page to talk about that. The community engagement plan is 200 words. That's found within the application itself, but this is kind of where you tell them what you want to do while you're there. How are you going to get immersed in the country? How do you want to become part of the community? what are some of the things you're looking forward to do while you're there. You could, of course, talk about travel plans, but usually this is where you talk about cultural activities you want to do as being part of the school or as part of a community member as a researcher. Usually the research ones do some kind of project at a local university. They connect with one. But they do want to see you have plans to do stuff in their community, right? You need 3 recommendations. If you're going for the graduate award or you're going for the research projects, those are 3 actual letters. You need to tell me who are going to write your letters, and then I communicate with them. And I work with your letter writers to work on their letters and to make sure that they say and hit all the things that the Fulbright program is looking for, because you cannot see your own recommendations, but I can. So I work closely with the faculty that are going to recommend you to make sure that that letter is absolutely stellar. And to be honest, everybody listening, every recommendation is absolutely stellar. If there's one more stellar category we can add to it, is usually what I do. But the faculty do extremely well with Fulbright recommendations, and they're absolutely flowing, right? If you're going for the ETA, it's a form with questions. And again, I just work with the faculty members. I give them samples of the questions that they can do a draft before they put it into the system. Everything that we work on will go into your online application that you set up with Fulbright, which I talk about when we make that next meeting and sit down and really talk about the application process and the website. You need transcripts. These need to be the digital transcripts purchased from the registrar. So they can't be copied from portal. Don't worry about that. We'll get those in September, right before you apply. You might want to wait to September to get it anyway if you're doing summer coursework, because you want those summer classes to show up in your transcript. With an online form and these materials, that's what comprises your Fulbright application. But I cannot, again, emphasize enough that 99.8% of the evaluation is going to come in those 2 statements. And so over the summer, we work on those 2 statements the entire time. And you need to be ready for that. You need to be ready that this is going to be a multiple draft process where we're going to learn what needs to come out. You're going to learn about yourself, and you're going to learn more and more about the country, and then you start kind of articulating that fit. But it takes sometimes a while to get there, especially if you're coming to a country with just an interest in it, not with long-term knowledge. But you need to be ready to work over the summer. We don't need to work on it continuously. We need to work on it consistently. Right? I know that there's 3 months in the summer, but you need to have space in your life to work on this consistently throughout the summer, sending me drafts and me making comments and sending them back to you, and back and forth we go. And Jimmy probably could talk a little bit more about that experience from her end and what that's like. But again, vast majority, it's not your transcript. I tend to think it's the letter of rec. Every one of them is pretty glowing. So nothing really matters as much as those 2 statements, and that's why we spend so much time on them. There is the application timeline, and you kind of need to prepare for how lengthy a process this can be. So the application is open now, and it closes in October. So basically what we're doing is we are going to the national deadline in October. It's the first Tuesday of the first full week of October. And we're working towards that deadline over the summer. So all summer long, we're working on that application. By late August, me and you need to be able to look at each other and say, this is pretty close to being done. In early September, we're going to pause. I put a faculty review committee together of me and about 2 other faculty members. Sometimes alumni from UNA who have won in the program will participate too. Jimmy regularly participates and reviews applications, and she's fantastic at it. But we sit down and we all read your application as it stands, and we all just kind of have a conversation with each other about what is its strengths. Do we see any weaknesses? What else can be done? because you have 1 month left to work on it. And so out of that conversation with us and the faculty member, we find out what's our last plan of attack for the last month. We get those things, and then you're basically working to the October deadline, and then you submit in October. Okay, you're going to submit in October. You're going to be excited. You might cry. I know I'm going to cry because it's a long process. But when it's over, you click submit, you will hear absolutely nothing until the end of January. And so the radio silence is very weird because it becomes such an important part of your life for so long, and then you hear absolutely nothing. In January, Fulbright will let you know if you're a semifinalist. What that means is that the first stage of the review, which is done by faculty members drawn from all over the country, all over the United States, they come together into a panel and they review your application. And if they say you're a semifinalist, that means that they think your application has merit and they want to pass you on to the host country. Once you get passed on to the host country as a semifinalist, the host country will make the final determination to determine if you're a finalist. That won't happen until March or April. Fulbright is a wait. And you need to be prepared for that. The wait can be intense sometimes, partly just because you want to know. What I tell students, because it's a wait, is that you need to live your life as well as apply for Fulbright. If you're interested in graduate programs, if you're interested in jobs, continue to apply for those things as you apply for a Fulbright. It's just that if you get Fulbright, you're just going to have to make a decision of which one fits you the best. If it's between Fulbright and a graduate program, me and you just need to talk, because most graduate programs give you a deferment for 1 year anyway, and most programs will allow you some kind of deferment for a Fulbright. Fulbright's a really big deal. Graduate programs want students that have Fulbrights or Fulbright recipients. I have yet to meet a graduate program that does not work with a student to delay their acceptance for 1 year and come on board. Walker Maddox, who was an ETA to Malaysia, she got into her master's program in math, and they held her spot and held her funding for 1 year so she could go do it. So again, they typically hold the funding for graduate programs. In jobs, I have seen situations where people have held jobs for the 1 year so they can do the Fulbright. That tends to be rare, but that's just a conversation you have to have with, usually you talk to me, you talk to your family, you talk to your boss, and you find out, is this what I want? Do I want to do the Fulbright? And if the answer is yes, then you take the Fulbright. If the answer is no, that's okay, right? I want you to do this. I'm a big believer in you should put your best foot forward and you should go for this if this is what you want. But if you find after all this waiting that something else in your life has happened and you really want that, that's fine, absolutely fine. And I can guarantee you that when the day you make that decision to not accept your Fulbright award, you're not going to regret anything you've done. The Fulbright process teaches you so much about yourself and your potential. It gives you a certain confidence to go out into the world that you're not going to wish you trade that away. You're going to be glad that you went through the process, regardless of what happened. I promise that. So the big question gets to be, can I do this? That's what every student I meet says. Can I do this? Here's 11 UNA students that can do it, right? And these are the 11 that I've had since 2017. I've had 10 in 3 years. I've had students from Coleman. I've had students from Arab, Alabama. I've had students from Haleyville, and I've had students from Huntsville. I've had students from small places and big places. I've had students with learning disabilities. I've had students that are athletes. I've had students that have been 47 years old. All of them have won. And the reason that they've won is because, and this is something that I push a lot for students like us that are rural students that come from the South, is we've got to remember how unique and special we actually are. And that sometimes what holds us back is we don't consider how special and unique we are, right? Because We're rural kids, and we think that, our lives are not that special sometimes, but they are. You want an ETA in Malaysia? That's a rural English teaching assistant. That's working in a rural school. Who's best to fit that placement than somebody that comes from Alabama, right? Walker Maddox wrote about learning in a school where all the textbooks were damaged by water and the pipes always burst and you couldn't use the bathroom, and the softball coach taught physics even though he didn't know softball or physics, right? That, this thing that we go through, that we all look around and go, well, this is just life. Putting that into a narrative and telling someone who doesn't have that experience can be really, really valuable. It can be compelling. And that's why Fulbright's actually looking for you. What we have to do is just tell them who you are. We have to tell them the parts about you that really hit on what they're interested in, right? And it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter how old you are. As long as you fit what they want and you're eligible, Fulbright tends to pick you, right? And so I've had success, and UNA has had success because students like Jimmy and the other 10 you see here just told Fulbright who they were and what they cared about. And my job is to make sure in that small space we have to do that you do it in the best way you can. And I can't tell you how proud I am of everybody that applies for a Fulbright. Everybody that goes through it, it's a journey. It's a journey of self-discovery. And when you get done with it, you're glad you did it. But I'm always glad that anybody applies for a Fulbright, because if you sit down and tell your story, and you sit down and tell about where you come from as a unique and special place, I think that's valuable in and of itself. And I'm glad that more and more UNA students are doing it. And you should do it, right? So those are my I call them my 11. When I get so close to all the applicants that I feel too close to them, but they're also special to me, and they work so hard, and I am their biggest fan, right? As anybody that applies for Fulbright, I become your biggest fan. Can we do this? Meaning we as an institution. Yes, we can do this. Students that come from this institution can do this. We have been labeled a top producer by the U.S. State Department for 2 years in a row. That means that institutions of UNA size, we have in 2 years produced more Fulbrights than all of our other peers. And the reason we're doing that is because UNA students are special. UNA students have good stories. UNA students come from interesting places. And so that's why you can do this. And that's why we can do this. So basically, the ending here, and I'm going to turn this over to Jimmy to let her talk about her experiences, is that once you take the step to say, I'm going to go for this, I'm going to apply for a Fulbright, then you get an amazing support structure. I am there all throughout the summer to help you. Your rec writers will work very hard to make sure that their letters of recommendation are great. I will make sure that each step of the process is as easy as it can be on you, and that it is as beneficial to you as possible. I really commit to that, and I commit to being your support through this, so you don't have to go through this alone, right? That it's you and me versus this application process. And I think the way we handle that, I think that's part of our success, is that, we're just a team, and we're working as hard as we can to make sure that who you are comes out, and how valuable and special you are, how that comes out. Before I turn this over to Jimmy, the next step in any of this is just emailing me next, telling me you're interested, telling me that you want that conversation. Because quite frankly, guys, it's hard to talk about Fulbright unless we're really talking about an individual person, what they care about, what they like, what parts of the world they want to go to, what language background they have, and so forth and so on. So we really need to sit down for that next talk. That's my email in big letters. I'm the guy who emailed you a lot anyway, so you can always reply to one of those. You can also check out Fulbright online at different places. They have Twitters, they have Instagram. You can watch videos made by recipients on YouTube. Fulbright's pretty good at making sure that the Fulbright experience is front and center for people to see. So what I'll say to close this off and then turn it over is you should apply. You should try. And if this is something that makes sense to you and makes sense in your life, you are absolutely eligible for it. You are absolutely competitive for it. All me and you need to do is sit down and figure out a plan of attack. And we can do that, and we can do that together. All right. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to turn this over to Jimmy. Oh, we got a question. Sean Vickers has a question. It is about master's programs. Sean's, and it's a great question too, Sean. So the way this works with funding, if it's a second year program, you do get funding for that second year. However, I'm going to say most international master's degrees tend to be only 1 year. International master's degrees are a lot quicker and faster than they are in the States. So for instance, a university at Sussex in the UK, that will start in September. It will end in July. And when you come home, you actually have your diploma in your hand. So that's how quick it is. If you do need, for instance, like there's a research project and you're really invested in it and your faculty are so enthusiastic, some programs will offer another year of funding if you need it, right? But that really comes down to what country you've chosen. And that's part of the talk that we do together is figuring out what you want to do and what's the best place to do it, and can you do it within the timeline that you have provided. I hope that answers, but Sean, if you need to Sean, that's just the next step of the process, is just emailing me and we can go from there. All right, Jimmy, I've talked enough. So tell us a little bit, we probably have mostly students at this point. So just tell them first, what was the application process like?
So the application process, I started the beginning of July, and by the end, or by whenever we submitted it, I had 13 edits. And I thought when I initially sent in my first personal statement, I was like, oh, this is amazing. I spent so much time on this. And it was like, oh, we need to redo all of this and focus on this. So know that if you go through that, that's completely okay. And like Dr. Price said, it is a reflective journey, and you're figuring out like what you want to do with your life, what you're passionate about. And it is just the application alone. Like if you do end up not getting it, there's a lot of self-discovery within that. And I feel very grateful to have gone through the application process. But putting together your application. So like he said, you don't necessarily have to have teaching experience. A lot of things can be valued as teaching experience. So essentially you need to have a culmination of what you've done for the past 4 years. What are your skills? What have you done? Internships? Have you been a leader in an organization? Have you been a part of an organization? What have you been involved with in the community in Florence? All those things, a culmination of 4 years, and then you need to bridge that to what the commission is asking for. This can be through the perspective of ETA and master Fulbrights, but specifically with ETA, you need to look at what does this commission, what are their priorities in English learning, what grades will you be teaching, and you need to try to bridge your skill set to whatever the commission is asking. So from my experience, I was a marketing major. My teaching experience was for 2 weeks. So I didn't have that much teaching experience, but I had a culmination of skills that I could highlight within my application. And me and Dr. Price figured out a way to bridge what I could do with what the commission was asking. And I believe we did a student incubator. So with Taiwan, it was mainly elementary to middle school students. And with a marketing degree, I wanted to highlight that in my application and show that I could use that through teaching English. So we came up with like a marketing show and tell, essentially. And we created my skill sets and made it applicable for what the commission was asking. Yeah, and there's another one that also went to Taiwan, and he was a STEM major, and he tailored his STEM skill set to what Taiwan was asking, and we were both accepted into the program. So you just really need to do your research on, be reflective on what you have to offer, and then research on what the commission has to, or what they're wanting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and sometimes Taiwan ends up being a good place because they're a little bit more open about what they're asking for.
Definitely, definitely.
So we had materials to work from, but some countries you're really flying blind, and you're trying to basically read tea leaves to see what are you interested in and where we can see the programs going. But yeah, you got to do a little research in there to figure them out. Yeah. So the statement of grant purpose, when you sat down to say, like, I want to teach English, what do you think? Talk to them about the importance of the American culture part of the assignment.
Like bringing American culture into. Okay. What did I? So I talked about Florence, and Florence is a music hub. And I talked a lot about bringing my experience living in Florence into the classrooms, into rural classrooms in Taiwan. I talked about how that was like a big part of my interest and how I could bring that into a classroom. And like what you said, the girl that was in Greece, how she had experience in theater. And how she could bring that into the classroom. So just be reflective on what you're passionate about and something that you could bring from your kind of like, your story, essentially, like what your cultural piece is and what you could bring into a classroom. And it can range from anything. It can be music, it can be STEM, it could be any cultural piece that you feel is a part of you into the classroom. I
think both Jimmy and I are big Black Keys fans, and I think you even talked about the Black Keys in there and how Black Keys lyrics can help you teach certain idioms in English. But that's what you got to do.
It's true. Yeah, I remember we had a lot of lessons at the end of the class to kind of liven up the spirits to go to their other classes, and I would play music, American music, and I would put the lyrics on the screen, and even if they could only point out a few words, you hear that over and over again and you start to learn that. So you can do that with anything that you are passionate about.
So you applied. Talk about what it was like to wait.
Oh my gosh. Or I didn't think I was going to get it. And I was like, this is a shot in the dark. I think everybody feels that way. You just put so much into it. It's just like when you wait, because you submit in October. I didn't hear anything until the end of January. And then I didn't hear anything from then until March, or the end of March. Mm-hmm. And I was already planning on what I was going to do. I was applying for other scholarships and like other opportunities just in case this didn't pan out. Waiting is really hard. And you're right. You spend so much time with you working on the application, and it becomes a part of your daily routine that when you finally submit it and you don't have that anymore, it's odd. I don't know. It was a hard transition.
Yeah. Jimmy actually, so I'm gonna spill this story, Jimmy. You can't get mad at me. But Jimmy applied to the Fulbright because I asked her to, but she was really going to apply for the Bourne Scholarship, which is $20,000 to study abroad. but you have to be interested in national security. So Jimmy was doing me a favor by applying for the Fulbright program because I thought she was a good fit for it. But she was like, I'm working on my boring stuff.
Yep.
I'm going to get my boring stuff.
I was 100% boring. I was like, even it, yeah. I did it, yeah, right.
So what ended up happening between Fulbright and boring?
I got both somehow, and I chose Fulbright because it's just what it offers you in comparison to so many other scholarships is just, I mean, it's an amazing experience. And I still keep in touch with my cohort, people within the commission. I mean, you make friends for life whenever you go to your placement.
So talk a little bit about your life there. What was it like?
So Taiwan in comparison to a lot of other commissions are very different, but even within Taiwan, everybody has a different experience, which is pretty cool. So for me, what makes Taiwan so special, and a lot of other commissions are not like this, you get a month of training whenever you first get there. And then you have a week at the end of that month where you tour all of so in my case, we had elementary and middle schools. You tour all of the elementary and middle schools, and then you watch the co-teachers that you will potentially teach with give presentations on what their teaching style is, what they want out of an ETA, essentially. And then you get to rank those schools and pick the school that you feel you're most compatible with, which is amazing. A lot of other commissions place you based off of your personal statement, but in Taiwan, you get a little bit more control over that. So I got placed into my 2 schools. So I had 2 elementary schools, and then that I did Monday through Thursday. And then Friday I taught at like an English village. So you learned like usable colloquial English. And they had like an actual airplane, an airport, shopping mall, a hospital, and you would teach them English, English scenario curriculum within those spaces. And then Monday through Thursday, I would alternate between my elementary schools, and I would teach 8 to 3, 8 to 3:30, and then Friday was 8 to 12. So you have a lot of free time. And outside of that, in the county that I was in, we got host families, and I was enrolled in Chinese classes. So I was very much embedded within the community, and I still keep up with my co-teachers and my host family and my my teachers at my university. So that was my day-to-day. Even like I was there when the pandemic hit, and everybody else had to go back, and Taiwan Commission let their ETA stay. There are ETAs from my year that are actually still there doing a 3rd year ETA, which is kind of crazy. It's cool.
That's only because of COVID. That's not going to happen again.
Because of COVID, yeah. Sorry. You can apply for a 2nd year, but I think that's it. And I got to stay and learn Chinese, and like Fulbright gave me the rest of my stipend, and I got to stay in my place. So the Fulbright Commission in Taiwan I would say, is really special, and they really curate an experience that is so helpful for their ETAs, and it's so unlike all the other commissions.
Can you talk a little bit of what your living arrangement looked like?
Oh yeah, our living arrangement was kind of like a townhouse, like it was 4-story townhouse that was we had 5 ETAs that lived in it, and it was segmented off. And I was on the 2nd level, and it had 2 bedrooms, like a living area, and then a bathroom, and I shared it with another person. It was very clean, very nice, in the middle of the city, and the rent was like $120, and I think you make around $1,200. So accommodations was a very low level on your expenses.
Can you say that again? Rent was $100?
Yeah, I think it was 105. Yeah, it was very cheap.
So
And
they
you're
should.
getting paid 1,300, I think.
So
Yeah.
they should just do this just for the cheap rent.
Yeah. The treat.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the food.
That's it. So let's get to that. Tell them like stories about just being in the city, like the cool things.
So in where I was, so in Taiwan, making friends is really easy. I mean, I would say it's for most foreigners, I would say in other countries, but you kind of stick out, especially when you're in rural communities and they're like, oh, that's the teacher. And they would say that in Chinese, like, oh, that's the English teacher. And I had like certain places that I would eat at, and I befriended the owners. I had like a breakfast lady that I would go to. There's a girl that lived in Italy for 20 years and opened up like a gelato shop, like homemade Italian ice cream and treats. And she made my birthday cake. I befriended her. I'm friends with some of them on Instagram. And they still message me. They're like, when are you going to come back? Like, we miss you so much. Yeah, no, it was you whenever you're there and you don't know the language and you're trying to learn everything, like so many people want to help you and so many people like champion you and they want to be your friend. And especially if you're in a small area, you become like people like know you. They're like, oh, that's the foreigner. Yeah, I know it was absolutely amazing, and I miss it.
I know that. Well, I could say that Molly's experience was a little bit different than yours.
Yes.
She was in the Czech Republic. She had her own flat, so she had her own apartment that was for her, and she didn't have a host family. But I don't know that you guys did this in Taiwan. Molly did, but Molly hung out in the ambassador's mansion for an evening, getting tipsy on wine and cheese.
I know, amazing.
And running around the ambassador's mansion. All the ETAs that year were running around taking photos of themselves with big glasses of wine in grand ballrooms and things like that. But you did.
Oh, what?
Go ahead.
We unfortunately did not get to do that. But we did have a Fulbright conference in January, and it was 3 days, and it was at this hot spring hotel, like in the mountains in Taipei, which I guess is better than the ambassador. But yeah, it was free hot springs, massages, free food. You had continental breakfast. I mean, it was surreal. There was a hiking trail that you could go on. I mean, breathtaking. And that's like the big conference that they do. And then they have other conferences where they're at really like nice ballrooms in Taipei, and they have wine and they have food and like entertainment, like performances. They treat you really well.
Yeah. What advice would you give to people that are on the fence going, I don't know if I want to do it?
I would say that your story matters a lot. I remember going and people were like, oh, I'm from Harvard and I'm from Princeton. And like a lot of people, like a lot of those people went to private high schools or boarding high schools and then went to private colleges. And this is kind of like just another step for them. And to know that the commission looks for people like us and they want to hear our story, and your story is valuable, and know that you're going to make an impact. And when you get there, you're a part and on the same level as all those other students that went to those Ivy League schools, and you have just as an important story to tell as they do. And to know that you're going to make a difference, like Dr. Price said, like you're a piece of foreign affairs when you're abroad, and you make an impact on students' lives and on people that you meet on their lives. And I still keep up with so many people. So yeah, just know that you're good enough and your story matters.
Yeah. I think that's been something that working with Jimmy that came around, was that your story just matters. And
it's hard to tell yourself that. in the middle
Right.
of application process, but once you go
Yeah.
through, you'll realize that will solidify and you'll hold on to this for the rest of your life.
That's good. Well, it doesn't seem like we have any questions that have ticked in. So what I would say now is that we're at almost 4:30, so we've gone almost an hour and a half. Is that I'm going to end the conversation here with the stipulation that the next step is to reach out and talk to me and make that meeting, and then we start thinking and start talking and start planning what you want to do and where you want to go and so forth and so on. This webinar has been recorded, so I'll send out a recording of this as well. That will probably go out into the digest and all that. So make that the one digest that you read that day or this semester. Other than that, I want you to know that the Fulbright program is here for you, and the Fulbright program is actually looking for you. Yeah. It's our job to show that it's our job to make you visible, yep. Right? Because they are looking, yep. Right? And Jimmy's right. The Harvard and Yale kids, I mean, I'll be honest, they're boring. They're boring.
They are.
They're just boring kids. I'm sorry.
No, I agree.
Great school, boring kids. But anyways, this is for us. This is for you. So make that meeting with me. Take the chance, or just let's have the next conversation. You don't have to commit to anything yet. Let's have the next conversation. That's where this should go. So I'm around, I'm here, and I'm sure Jimmy will there's a third question.
There's another one in the chat too.
What was the name of the website? Lexi, that is, you can just Google Fulbright student program and it'll take you to the right place. But make sure that you say Fulbright student program and not scholar program. The scholar is the faculty one. I've had some students come in and start talking about the application process, but it's actually the scholar they were talking about. And we had to double back because it's radically different. Did they cover your airfare as well? Yes, they do.
Yeah, you don't even have to deal with any of that. For my commission, they have a travel agent that works for them, and she will reach out to you, ask where you live, you give her your address, and then she will create all the flights and do everything for you. You don't have to worry about any of it.
Yeah, I think what ends up happening is, like, on the flights, you begin to see the Fulbrighters.
Yes, that's exactly what happened. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So you begin to look at somebody who's kind of on the same flights as you, and you begin to think, "Are you a Fulbrighter?"
Yeah, we got into the Taiwanese airport, and there were like 200 of us, like everybody, and it was so overwhelming. All the Taiwanese people were like, "What in the world?" There's so yeah. You conjugate on the airplane and start to make friends.
Yeah. All right. Well, Jimmy, thank you so much for doing that. And Jimmy most likely will help us out again next year.
I will be there.
So thank you, Jimmy, so much for your time. And I want to thank everybody who agreed to do this on what is the last day of school. I'm proud that we all made it this far after we've made it through a very, very tough year. So I'm here. I'm available. Make that meeting with me, reach out, let's have that next step in the conversation. So I'm going to sign off now.